The sirens faded behind me, but the panic hadn't. Glass had shredded my car, my ankle throbbed, and my ribs screamed. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling. "Dad," I typed, almost begging, "can you pick me up from the ER?" His reply came before I could blink. "I'm at lunch with your stepmom, can't just leave." I stared at it. The betrayal wasn't new, but the timing was exquisite. I typed back, "Okay." I hung up, wincing as the nurses pushed me into a wheelchair. It was a small act, but I felt the shift, calm, settling where panic had been. Revenge doesn't start with yelling. It starts with control. I remembered when it was different. When I was 12 and he lifted me onto his shoulders in the backyard, the world safe beneath his grin. He promised he'd always be there, even after the divorce. I believed him, trusted him, loved him. I didn't see it then, the way his new family slowly eclipsed me. The missed birthdays, the cold dinners, the glances that said, "You're not enough." Subtle at first, then brutal. A message from my mother left open on his phone. "So glad you're home for lunch. Can't wait for us." I saw red, but I stayed calm. I needed a plan, not a scene. I began watching, studying. Patience was my weapon. I cataloged every lie, every excuse, every slight. The legal loopholes, the company accounts, his habitual arrogance, they all became pieces on a board. Every misstep he made, I saved. Every smug text to his mistress, I printed. Evidence. Waiting. The first move was silent. I transferred funds from the accounts he thought were untouchable. I contacted the board members of his business, planting seeds of doubt. I hired a private investigator, not for gossip, but for leverage. Every dinner he skipped with me, every late-night text to her, I had a record. I didn't want public humiliation. I wanted inevitable collapse. Weeks later, it came together. I watched from the curb as he sat at the restaurant with her, laughing. I had everything: proof of embezzlement, falsified expense claims, the mistress's testimony. A small packet discreetly delivered, and the next morning the board called him into a meeting. But the most delicious part was the police. They came quietly, walked up to his table. He froze, eyes darting, smiling, faltering. The officer leaned in, flat, professional. "Mr. Henderson, you're under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." I watched the color drain from his face. My hands stayed in my lap. No cheering, no satisfaction in voice, just watching him crumble, piece by piece, exactly as I had calculated. He tried to argue, tried to charm the officer, the restaurant, me, but I had anticipated everything, every excuse, every lie. Nothing worked. His world, the one he thought untouchable, collapsed quietly, efficiently, utterly. Later, when I sat alone in my apartment, I allowed myself a small smile. No triumphal shouting, no empty victories, just the satisfaction of balance restored. The man who left me bleeding on the curb now understood what absence, what neglect, what betrayal really costs. I thought about him, alone in an interrogation room, realization dawning too late. And me, finally free. Stronger, steadier, not a daughter left behind, not a pawn in his schemes, but someone who could survive the worst and still walk away whole. Revenge, I realized, isn't about rage. It's about patience, strategy, watching them build their empire, then quietly unmaking it until their own reflection becomes unbearable. And when it's done, when they've learned the cost of leaving you behind, that's when you breathe. That's when you step into the sunlight and remember you are not broken. I let the memory of the hospital fade. The pain in my ribs, my ankle, they were nothing compared to the long, patient satisfaction of what had finally been set right. I wasn't a victim. I was the reckoning.